Hello and welcome to Gritty Reboot, the show where we make fun of TV and now movies' dark sides. I'm Kevin James. With me are my co-hosts Sarah Dunaway and Hunter Markham, and we just watched the 1996 hit film, The Craft.
This is a film that I'd certainly heard a lot about. Its runtime is approximately 8 hours and 30 minutes. At least experientially.
I had such a different experience from you two because
Was it only like 5 hours for you?
See, this just so you know, first time we do a film, it may just destroy and break apart this ship of a podcast because I got to the end of the film and I was like, man, I wish they'd done a sequel with the same cast. I would watch it right now.
You know, what's crazy, the cast is great. I just don't think the screenplay was.
The way I started looking at this movie, the look of the film, the practical effects, and the pacing and screenplay, it kind of had more in common with a late 70s, early 80s sort of John Carpenter film, like the original version of The Fog with Jamie Lee Curtis and Adrienne Barbeau, and less in common with mid-90s movies like Clueless, which came out the year before. This felt like a throwback movie, and maybe it's because I'm a big fan of those sorts of B-ish horror movies that I liked this more or was predisposed and conditioned for this sort of movie.
I think I had a similar thought, not quite the same, but it felt to me like some foreign horror films I've watched where like the pacing is just a lot slower, or just like foreign films in general, like, you know, French films where it's like kind of slower. And at times I'm like, I'm not really sure what's happening, if anything is. It had that kind of a feel.
But to take a step back, before you watch this movie, since we stepped away after watching a season and a half of Riverdale and said we were going to watch some movies, to look at something that has more of a contained plot line, what did you expect from this before you hit play on it?
I thought it was going to be campier. Like, I was expecting something, I think, like a proto-Charmed.
That's kind of what I was expecting too. More like the slightly more horror version of Charmed. And they even played
How Soon Is Now. Yeah.
So that made me think like, oh, my expectations were correct. Then the movie continued.
I thought it was actually going to be darker than it was. Well, there was some darkness. For me, it walked a good line because I struggle with super self-serious horror movies that are trying really hard to be like, oh, this is dark and gritty and gruesome. And I like a little bit of camp, and to steal a line from Duran Duran, this struck the perfect balance between discord and rhyme.
Interesting.
Well, I like
for me
horror crap.
There were things I really liked about it. Like, there's no question this would pass the Bechdel test with flying colors. The men in this movie are, you know, completely disposable and only there briefly. That part's great. There was some really good acting. All of the leads, actually, I thought did a great job.
Yeah. There are good things to say about it. I think the main problem for me is just the stakes kind of wound up being so low and the pacing so glacial that it was hard to get invested. The stakes weren't quite small enough for it to be slice of life, but they weren't big enough for it to feel like a threat. It was just kind of like, well, I'm mad, so I am going to mildly torment my ex and then be mean to you in school.
We should probably back up and explain a little bit about the plot.
Yes.
Should we?
To explain the plot, macro level, 4 high school girls get really into witchcraft. Witchcraft is real, and they start laying curses and spells on classmates, and things go super haywire. But it also opens with some really strange stuff. Our protagonist, and this is going to be confusing, is named Sarah, and we have a Sarah hosting the podcast, so how are we going to manage this?
We can call her by her last name of Bailey.
Oh, I did not know that was her last name in the movie.
I'm literally just looking at the Wikipedia plot synopsis.
Or we could just call her Robin Tunney.
Yes.
I like that.
Robin Tunney, the Luke Perry of this episode.
She dead? No, hopefully not.
Oh, God. I hope I didn't
Hope
mean it in
not.
that way.
We just laid the Gritty Reboot curse on her.
Oh, no. The opening is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie because it's so immediately cheesy and dated. It's like the editor went in and said, so how 90s should we make our opening credits? And the director said, yes.
The director said, Lisa Frank Backstreet Boys.
You better believe we're going to set this to a grunge cover of the Beatles.
I mean, yeah, my note on it was gingerbread cookie making ass scene with these cute little scented candles all around, and it was kind of brightly lit for the fact that it prominently featured a pentagram, and then they just strobed it to full seizure-inducing levels, and that's when I knew I'm gonna like this movie.
Oh yeah, there was like clouds and a very 90s font. It was excellent. Just took right off. And then so Robin Tunney's character is new to town, and she moves into a new house that is actively leaking, but the floors look great, which I think is already magic is real.
I lived in LA for 11 years. Kevin, you're from Southern California, LA Orange County area, and the fact that this opened with it having a thunderstorm in LA, which never happens, and
Yes.
B, the fact that they're at LAX and it looked really quiet and there weren't 600 cars and like everyone honking at each other and screaming.
I have to say, their vision of LA is very strange and alien to me.
I did not pick up that it was supposed to be LA.
It wasn't until like a third of the way through the movie where Robin Tunney was fighting her way through a sea of homeless people like, oh, it is LA.
I didn't get it at all. I would never have thought that because it didn't look like LA.
It's like mentioned in like the quickest aside, like, we live in LA now. There's the random homeless man that offers people snakes. The thing we all know about that happens in LA.
I was trying to place it geographically within LA. At first I thought they were supposed to be in Highland Park, which before 2012 looked entirely like the street scene where there's a bunch of homeless people. But then as we go to all these beach scenes, I think it was supposed to be like a Palos Verdes, San Pedro area for useless LA geography knowledge.
Cool.
This is what all 4 of our listeners subscribe to us for.
I can always cut that out. But the one thing they have a mission style home that they move into that's leaking like a sieve. And on day 1, the welcome wagon comes around where the homeless guy decides to offer Robin Tunney a snake.
So here's the question. What's the deal with snakes in this movie? Like, they come up so often, they're clearly symbolic of something. But what?
Snakes are really scary. They're my greatest fear. So I was
Really?
pretty much focused on that. I'm deathly afraid of snakes.
Interesting.
But I think the thing was the homeless dude shows up in the first scene, offers her the snake like, oh, do you want this? And it's, as you watch the movie, you find out that Robin Tunney has always had magical powers and she's a natural born witch. So somehow this dude sensed her witch powers and is like, witches love snakes. I'm going to make a friend.
I was assuming it was some sort of like, temptation of Eve, like women's desires kind of a thing. But
In
I
a
don't know.
good movie, that would make a lot of sense.
That's the deeper symbolism then, is the thing that she's tempted by the serpent in the first scene, and then that plays into this movie where she goes in too deep in witchcraft, which is biblically
Eats the
satanic.
forbidden fruit.
Yep.
Yeah, totally.
And so she goes to school and immediately meets the other 3 main characters who are immediately revealed to her to be witches, and they just become friends immediately. So we have Bonnie Harper, played by Neve Campbell, Nancy Downs, played by Fairuza Balk, and Raquel Zimmerman, played by Rachel True. And they each have their own little thing going on. I think we can all guess where this is going. Nancy, she has an incredibly abusive stepfather. Rochelle is dealing with racist bullying from one of the popular white girls. And Bonnie just has some random scarring on her back. The most tragic of all backstories.
Oh, wow.
Okay, here's the thing. They decided to put this in a Catholic school, and most of the movie, this was probably one of my complaints. There wasn't really a need for it to be a Catholic school besides, like, let's put girls in little plaid skirts.
100% that was why.
Because there aren't that many scenes at the school, and there's one where they're in mass, but it's so glossed over that it just seemed like a cosmetic choice. But the good thing is Skeet Ulrich goes to school there.
Speaking of glossing over, like, I missed the whole problem with him and Robin Tunney until I was rereading the plot synopsis. I totally missed the asked her out, they went on a date, and they spread rumors about how she was bad in bed.
By read the plot synopsis, he means that I told him about it as we were walking our dog, where I was like, I feel like they really sped through that whole thing where they went on a date and then he lied about her, and he was like, oh, did that happen?
Was I the only one that tracked that?
No, I tracked it completely.
Okay, cool.
It was fast, though. Like, that's what I was commenting on, was like, wow, I feel like
Yes.
there should have been more build-up, given that now that's a major plot point where it's like, she wants revenge.
Yeah, it's
and
funny.
did a
They
love
spend
spell.
they spend like 20 minutes just walking down the streets talking about their lives, in a way that's just like not really important to the plot, but they brush through that whole plot line in about 30 seconds of screen time.
Skeet doesn't get that much time to shine, but day one he comes up to Robin Tunney and is hitting on her, and in super douche high school boy way is like, you can watch me practice football after school. And that's when Nancy comes up and is like, hey, he gave me VD because he's got a dirty ass dick. And he's complete asshole, which then bears fruit later on in the show. I'm so used to watching a show in the movie. So I was tracking this really closely because it was this thing of girls looking out for girls and female friendships that gets twisted around in this movie because then it deals with jealousy. But this was a positive thing where at first these other three witches are looking out for Robin Tunney, and it gives this basis of a friendship.
Yeah, it's not a bad start.
Skeet Ulrich and his plotline of being an asshole actually becomes the catalyst for Robin Tunney deciding to do witchcraft with these girls, even though perhaps that failed romance plotline was not handled as well as it could have been.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot. The beginning of the movie just has that classic 90s thing where they don't really do like a meet cute, or they don't have a real setup. There's nothing that happens. It's just like suddenly we're friends now. And you just kind of roll with it.
Yes. Can we talk about how all of the teenage boys in this movie are fucking disgusting? First of all, Skeet Ulrich looks like
Wait, why did you say in this movie?
Yeah, Hunter, that is probably the most realistic part of this film.
I didn't go to high school, so I didn't experience what boys were like from 14 to 18 that much.
You
and
are
wasn't
so
a part
lucky.
of that. So is the fact that they refer to women as, quote, like snail trails and are basic like super fucking disgusting about all this stuff true to life?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like
God
popular
damn
Jack
it.
type boys? Yeah, definitely.
Because Breckin Meyer is in this movie basically playing the same character he did in Clueless, where he's the long-haired slacker, except now he's an evil long-haired slacker, and he's pretty much just like a complete piece of shit to every girl that's in the film.
Yeah.
And I was mad that he never gets comeuppance in any way.
Yeah. That's realistic as well.
God, I didn't know this was so bad. I fucking hated these boys. First thing in the movie, they're being shits. And I thought, okay, as soon as these girls start doing witchcraft, like, all of these motherfuckers are going to have their dicks fall off or something cool. It's going to be like The Fly.
That would have been great.
The part that was unrealistic to me was Christine Taylor's character bullying Rochelle. It started out fine with the reference to nappy hair, but then she just straight up says, like, I don't like black people. And I was like, wow, even in 96, that wasn't, you didn't.
And she uses
would've
like
been
an
subtler.
old-timey like slur for it too, and she's just publicly like talking out loud. It's like, you wouldn't be this popular in multicultural LA if you're just gonna be like, you know who I hate? The minorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that struck me as well, but being a white, apparently completely ignorant of high school life and what kids are like, I didn't want to discredit that. But then again, this film was written by a white guy, directed by a white guy, so his knowledge of how racial bullying works is probably like mine, and that is slim to none.
It's actually, I don't know if either of you guys have seen the Netflix movie Bright.
Oh, is that the one with Will Smith and an orc?
Yes. So they also have a really ham-fisted approach to race relations. The orc is the first orc in the LA Police Department, and the racial bullying in that movie is boiled down to the other cops put a kick me sign on the orc cop's back.
I just know that it was Joel Edgerton who played the orc, and I was kind of like, why would you cover up his handsome ass Australian face like that?
It's beautiful. It's always white writers. In that movie, it's Max Landis who is the writer, who just have no idea what actual racial bullying looks like, and just think, yeah, it's just like really generic high school bullying with like an ethnic slur thrown in, right?
It's not handled delicately clearly in Bright or in this movie, and it would have been more insidious and more nuanced.
Well, what's weird is that they started out strong. Like, I thought the comment about, I mean, Christine Taylor's character says something to the effect of comparing Rochelle's, like, natural kinky black hair to pubic hair, which is really offensive, but in a way that makes sort of sense as a, like, microaggression thing. And then she just goes 0 to 60 on that whole thing. And it's just like, you know what else I don't like? Just black people in general. Just don't like
driving around shooting all the jobs.
Yep.
Yeah, so then our witches, who in universe are called the Bitches of Eastwick, which, great name, love it. They go shopping at like a witchcraft store, and the owner of the store is like, here, you need to read this important book. It's called The Craft. No one ever reads it.
You're right. There's never a point in the book or a point in the movie where they're like, I've been reading The Craft.
It's like they drew such attention to it. It's the same name as the movie. Like, this is important, and then it just never comes up again.
Also, she buys 2 books and 3 candles for $20, and even in 1996, like, that seems like a real bargain.
I know, no sales tax. That's the real witchcraft.
When you pay in cash, you don't charge sales tax, like at my old job. But I was just imagining The Craft to be this really boring book where it's like introduction, and it's half like an introduction everyone skips because no one's ever read a fucking introduction in their life. And then it's just a history of magic, like Harry Potter, where that boring-ass book that only Hermione's read.
Or it's a book on DIY crafts and just has a really misleading cover.
The Craft, or as some may know it, pottery.
First, get a large loom.
A loom for pottery. Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, since we talked about Rochelle and Robin Tunney a bit, I think we could maybe go into the other 2 characters that are part of this little witch coven.
Mm-hmm.
And Neve Campbell is the one who has back scars, and she wears her hair combed over her face, where she's just desperately in need of a scrunchie for half the movie until she gets hot. Mm-hmm. That was an odd choice to me, because it seemed really affected and really faked, because Neve Campbell's Neve Campbell, and it's really hard to make her look ugly.
Yeah, it's the typical like Hollywood ugly approach, but it seems like they did even less than usual to try and make Neve Campbell look even marginally homely.
I didn't even know they were going for that. I knew they were trying to make her seem insecure, which I thought Neve Campbell did pull off. I didn't realize they were trying to imply that she like wasn't hot. Just that she felt weird about her back and like insecure about it.
It's so weird. She has like the least to work with, but she's still the most compelling of the 4, I feel like.
I mean, it's Neve Campbell. She can really act. So, yeah, there were still moments where I was, like, really buying what she was selling, even though it wasn't much. They didn't give her a lot to work with.
She really got probably the least screen time of any of the four witches that we get. And since her name was on the bill for this movie, and I didn't recognize Robin Tunney's name, I assumed that Neve Campbell was going to be our protagonist.
I mean, that feels like a safe assumption for a late 90s movie.
Yeah. I mean, as a person, just like a regular, normal person who, like everyone, has seen Empire Records like 12 times, Robin Tunney is probably a bigger deal to me than to other people. So, I got it.
I've seen Empire Records, but I didn't remember her. I just remember that Liv Tyler was in that, and they had that song by Queen Sarah Saturday that was fucking dope.
Seems. Yeah, it's a great song. Seems I'll never get enough. Yeah.
So that was where my mind went with that movie. And then our final witch in the group is Fairuza Balk, known for playing Vicky Valancourt in The Waterboy and being Hollywood's resident goth girl of the 90s.
Yeah.
Didn't recognize her.
She is approximately 30% mouth.
Yeah.
She is everyone's moment where they realized they were into goth girls when they were 8 years old. Or just my moment.
Yeah, that might just be you.
So everyone in your high school, you're saying.
But yeah, she plays pretty much what you expect, which is the damaged goth girl who has a noose in her locker, which they would totally not allow in schools.
I love how
days.
she leaves her locker open too. She just got this noose hanging in her locker, and she's like, "Let's just go to class. I'll just leave this here for the principal to walk by."
And I was instantly like, I would talk to her. She seems nice.
Oh.
After they convince Robin Tunney to not watch Skeet Ulrich practice football because they don't want her to dislocate her jaw from yawning, they were just like, let's go into LA and start drinking and smoking. Are they smoking doobies in this?
Probably, though, it might also be cigarettes at that point.
There's a lot of cigarette smoking in this movie, but they go wander through the streets of LA, and all of a sudden, after they end up in the middle of a park, they've got liquor store bottles, and it seems like Neve Campbell's puffing on a J.
Well,
I could be totally wrong.
They start out with the shoplifting. It feels like, that we're trying to set up like they're bad girls, And
then there's the vehicular manslaughter thing, which I thought was just an accident because the same snake-toting homeless guy from before comes up to them on the street and starts chasing after Robin Tunney. They cross the street. He runs out in the middle and gets run over by a truck. And afterward, we're told, I think we did that with our magic powers and we willed that to happen. And my whole thing was, he was in the middle of a busy street.
Yes. Okay, so their evidence for we willed it to happen was that they all simultaneously had the thought, he's going to get hit by that car. And I was like, I had that thought too. He's in the middle of the freaking street.
Yes.
Like,
we willed it to happen, Sarah.
It's my fault. It's our fault. Like,
but
we the viewers.
That's the thing. The movie seems to be like, no, they totally willed that to happen, but it's so unclear.
Yeah.
Robin Tunney's nightlife goes hella quick because it's her first day out with these girls smoking and drinking, and then she's like, I gotta go, and we see her up on the rooftop with Skeet Ulrich. Is this all happening in one day?
I have no idea.
That's a classic first day in LA kind of thing, You make friends with the evil girls, you learn a little witchcraft, do a little shoplifting, kill a homeless guy, and then you go on your first date.
That was odd, but I don't know what Skeet's issue was here, because they're on the rooftop, she's super into him, they smooch, and when he's like, let's go back to my place, nobody's home, she's really just like, hey, let's pump the brakes on that, let's form a relationship. And his recourse for that is to go around and tell everyone that he slept with her, but that it was really bad.
Yeah. No one makes Skeet Ulrich wait for a second date.
What? That was so strange to me.
Yes. that's what I mean about this whole thing just being the pacing of this whole thing being way off. Like, they needed to have way more of a relationship there to make it believable that he would be so pissed and that she would then be so pissed. Because it just seems like, oh, they had a weird thing that didn't work out, and now for some reason it's very dramatic.
But it's not like it didn't work out. It's not like she said,
No.
You're coming on really strong, and I don't think I want to see you anymore. And he's like, I'm going to get revenge. I'm going to tell everyone she's a slut. They had a really nice first date, and they kissed, and it seemed like she wanted to go out with him again. And
Right.
he's just like, I'm going to pull the cord on this. Fuck this. But it was really, if we step back to Riverdale Season 1, a Chuck Sticky Maple situation all over again.
Yup.
We just keep circling back to Riverdale.
We'll never forget you. There is a Riverdale quote. And
As
it's
above,
also-
so below.
Yes. They say as above, so below in the craft, so maybe Riverdale was referencing that.
Okay, I have to go back to Empire Records to talk about another reference that was blowing my mind, and I was very curious about it. I don't know the answer. So, Robin Tunney in Empire Records, her character, one of the things they discover is that she, the night before the whole movie happens, had tried to commit suicide, and they hold this funeral for her, this like fake funeral, as if she had died. And then she tells the story of how she tried to commit suicide, and it took her like an hour just to break through the safety strip on the pink razor. Her character in this movie had also attempted to commit suicide by slitting her wrists. And I just found that really strange.
Wow, oh, I don't remember her storyline from Empire Records, but that's a super
You need to watch
strange
Empire
connection.
Records like 11 more times.
I remember the Ape Hangers song whenever the one guy's driving to Atlantic City or whatever. It was mostly the soundtrack that impacted me.
The soundtrack is excellent, and I am a big fan as well. But yeah, she has a shaved head in Empire Records, if that helps. She
Okay,
shaves her
yes.
head during the movie.
Let's skip ahead to when the witches finally decide to make their wishes and like use their witchcraft purposefully for the first time.
Yes, so they go on a beautiful sunlit romp down the coast and go on a cute little nature hike, and it showed this adorable friend bonding moment. And then it turned into bloodletting and tarot and drinking wine.
You know, classic LA day.
Yeah, if you don't drink some blood at your wine tasting event, then you're fucking up.
And they all make a wish/spell for something. Say, Robin Tunney casts a love spell on Skeet Ulrich.
I guess it's believable teen girl liking an asshole, but my thing was, he's been a douche and lied about you this time. Like, wouldn't you cut him loose? Because I cannot stress this enough. He dresses like an idiot in this movie, and he looks like garbage.
Oh my god. His pants in this movie, I just couldn't get over it. Because he's a very handsome man, like especially back in this time period. We all thought he was super hot in Scream, even though he's a murderer. And in this movie, just they put him in these khakis that are like almost Jinkos.
Yes, and he's
And it's
Was
wearing
that
very
not the
upsetting.
fashion of the time?
No!
Oh, wow.
I mean, maybe it was.
He's wearing a one-size-fits-all polo shirt with these baggy khakis, so he looks like a shapeless mass. His hair is cut like Vince Vaughn in anything Vince Vaughn's been in. You're either in 7th grade with that haircut, or you're a father of 3,
Yep.
and there's no in between.
Oh, yeah. It
Versus
is-
Scream, where Skeet Ulrich kind of had like this sort of long hair, sort of bad boy look, and
Oh,
he was
full
wearing
on. He had great
V-necks and
hair.
looking hot as fuck.
Yeah, he has a hair that like sometimes comes a little bit down into his eyes. It's so good.
Here, he
Welcome
looks
to our
actually
podcast where we discuss Skeet Ulrich's hairstyles.
He's a beautiful man, and this was an injustice.
Now's the time to bring up that because we're talking about the craft, we're drinking craft beers, and I've silently gotten to beer number 2, and I may have to step away from the mic to get beer number 3 in a minute.
Wow, should we get more beers?
Yes, we should.
All right.
I'll go get.
All right.
All right.
So
I'll be right
I will
back to
finish
the-
recounting the witchcraft while my co-host restock. Rochelle casts a revenge spell on racist bully blonde lady, because her name is unimportant. Bonnie casts a spell to have her burn scars on her back heel, and then Nancy casts the spell to give her all the power she needs. So, what a great setup there. Sorry, our beer delivery came right as we were restocking on beer, so that was
perfect.
good timing. So we will have a rye pumpernickel in just a few moments.
I'm pretty sure this means we're witches.
Yeah, it does. We both thought it, so no. Okay, while you guys were restocking, I just told the audience what all of the wishes are, and it's so weird to me because they're all pretty selfish wishes, I guess. From the point of view of the movie anyway, we're told that those wishes were selfish. But it feels like heal my burn scars and make my bully stop bullying me are not actually that selfish of wishes.
No, first of all, have people stop being racist to me is a pretty dope wish and seems like something anyone would ask for, being put in that position, and having disfiguring scars and wanting them gone is so understandable that you can't consider it an evil wish. Whereas Robin Tunney's wish is, make Skeet Ulrich love me.
Look, we all wish that, Robin. We can't always get what we want, okay?
And Nancy's wish is like, I want to be all powerful.
She's like Palpatine in the Star Wars prequels. Unlimited power!
Yes, this is our first tip-off of many that she is evil.
Is this when the butterflies show up?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it's like an Owl City song.
you
Would you
Totally.
believe
you
your
would
eyes?
not believe your eyes if 10,000 butterflies. But yeah, it's and their wishes all come true pretty quickly. Skeet Ulrich does become infatuated with Robin Tunney, like not even getting it, trying to walk away, but like he can't. He seems compelled to follow her everywhere. Bonnie's back heals. Rochelle's her bully's hair just kind of starts to fall out, and Nancy just kills her stepfather with a heart attack.
Dude, Nancy's fucking lit. I love this.
My favorite part though is in the middle of Rochelle's bully losing her hair. They're in like swim class or diving class or something, and everyone like stops what they're doing to focus on the sudden hair loss of the bully. And Rochelle takes that time to execute a perfect dive, and the coach just looks at her like, what? How did she do that dive? In diving class.
I would have never just expected it. Yeah, Skeet Ulrich becomes a little bitch, and it's Nancy. The thing was, when we saw them at the picnic, she wished for all the powers of their deity, Mano. But then later on, someone says, oh, Nancy's upset because her spell hasn't worked yet, and says, I think that she wished to not be white trash anymore, which isn't what she wished for at all.
No.
But, I mean, it works because her stepfather dies. She and her mother get the whopping sum of $175,000.
Through life insurance. That's how it works.
And move into a swanky apartment in LA.
I would really like to know, because we're like told that they are like super poor. I'd really like to know how they had life insurance.
Through his job, I guess? I don't know.
Maybe. Life insurance is expensive though. One of my friends has it, and they pay like tens of thousands of dollars a year to maintain it. So
I mean,
it's
some
Oh,
job.
I
crazy.
did not pay for mine very much at all.
Yeah, my job gave me life insurance
Yeah.
through. But everything's turning up roses, and it taught me that witchcraft's the answer to all of my problems. And this whole movie starts with the three girls who had been at the school looking for their quote-unquote fourth to round out their group and be able to do all this cool witchcraft. So I think we need a fourth on this podcast.
we have Junie. What more do you want?
So, as long as she's willing to do some human sacrifice and shit, then we can probably start doing witchcraft.
All right, let's start calling elements. I'll be fire.
I'll be chromium.
Sarah, you need to pick your element.
No.
Her element is no, and judging by what our dog is doing on our bed, her element is nap time.
The outcome of Nev Campbell getting all of her back scars healed is that she comes strutting into class, dressed to the nines, with thigh highs and everything, and suddenly all the douchebag boys are like, "Hey, Bonnie." I mean, this whole thing was bizarre because she looks pretty much the same as she did before. She just pushed her hair back behind her ears.
Exactly. Yeah. And then we're supposed to know that she's changed because there's a conversation in the car where Robin Tunney says, "You've changed. You're narcissistic now." And I was like,
that's
what?
a leap.
The only things we see are she walks into class dressed nice because she doesn't have scars on her back and her shoulders, so now she can wear a sleeveless shirt. And B, when they go and visit Nancy in her new apartment, she sees a cute guy and comments on it. There's not a lot of Nev Campbell being a narcissist in here.
This is why the script just needed some fleshing out. There needed to be some of the stuff drawn more attention to and done better, and other stuff just cut out.
It turns out that Skeet Ulrich is too charmed by the magic and is too in love with Robin Tunney. And they go back to the witch lady who they stole a bunch of shit from and shoplifted stuff. And they try and ask, how do you stop these spells? And find out you can't really do that. There's no breaks on this. And I love the line of white magic versus black magic. And the witch lady's like, true magic is neither black nor white. And I want her to keep going it's more of a beige. Someone call it a taupe.
Actually, do you have a paint swatch? I could probably find the right color.
I guess tan would be another word for it.
Someone stop by Home Depot. Yeah, and she lets them know that, if your witchcraft is not selfless, it will come back to haunt you. So we slowly see the effects, playing out, and I mean very slowly.
Okay, the other thing that happens in that scene, then they go back to the lady, and they, reveal they've been doing spells and want them to stop, so they're clearly not handling this shit responsibly. Nancy, who's a dog collar wearing, super goth looking evil chick, comes up and wants to buy this dark book where the witch lady's like, this is really advanced and super dangerous. And
that'll be $13.45.
The line is, I want to buy it. And response from the witch lady, $25. You can probably kill a bunch of people with this, so I'm going to raise my price from 20 to 25.
Look, she may have concerns about how they're using the witchcraft, but she is a business lady first and foremost, Hunter.
It is a capitalist society. She's got to make ends meet.
Then we have Robin Tunney and Chris. And Chris gets really rapey, which makes sense given how he's acted in the past, but is a pretty tough scene to watch. And Robin Tunney runs away, and he's awful. And later, when she's crying that she thought deep down he was a good person.
Is that before or after we have the beach summoning scene?
After.
Okay.
Okay, so the rapey parts are before the beach summoning. The crying that he was a good person is after the beach summoning.
Yes, because that was, to go back, Tara, 100% right. When that was happening, so he goes on a date with Robin Tunney after he's been pestering her for ages. She thinks he's getting creepy, tries to leave, and he sexually assaults her. It doesn't end up going through, the act doesn't happen, but it was still a really unsettling scene and kind of put my teeth on edge, which I guess was the point.
It's pretty violent. She has to run away, through a forest to try to get away. It's bad.
Who could have thought putting a love spell on a douchebag could backfire?
I don't know.
He doesn't know what love is. He's not Forrest Gump.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Yeah, that seems less like love and more like sexual assault. I think it's probably a little troubling on the film's part to imply that that is how love works.
Yes.
Yes.
But then they go to the beach to sacrifice animals and call down lightning strikes, and some pretty badass shit goes on.
Oh, this was amazing though, because okay, so then they go around the corner and there are all of these sharks, different types of sharks, like a variety.
A smorgasbord of sharks.
Washed up on the beach.
Washed up on the beach, and then Nancy is like, I did it. Manon gave me a gift, and I'm his daughter now. And I was like, Daddy gave you sharks? Like,
Daddy shark doo 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 doo. Daddy shark doo 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 doo.
This wasn't the best effect scene, so the camera zooms out and we see a bunch of sharks washed up on the beach, and I wanted their line to be like, oh my gosh, our magic caused an explosion at the rubber shark factory. Now all of these obvious props are scattered across the beach.
It is fantastic. I just like that their magic has like such weirdly minor and not terribly important consequences, because it's like 6 or 7 dead sharks on the beach, which I guess might be a big deal, but I don't know. It seems...
You're forgetting about the extremely crucial power to change a streetlight from red to green sometimes, Kevin.
Or how they dyed their hair with what looked like Snapchat filters.
yes, that was my exact comment. I was like, I can do this right now. Just wait a second.
And this goes back to part of why I found it charming, because I'm one of those dweebs that loves practical effects, and this looked like 1978 through 1983 practical effects, but a decade and a half later. And I was super forgiving because I watched so many of those movies, but at the same time, it showed that this movie had a fairly small budget, and nowadays you wouldn't have that problem because special effects are so easily accessible even for the lowest budget films. But they look super dated here, which I love, but I can see how it can totally take someone out of a movie.
The time that it took us out, it was just underwhelming.
I changed my eye color from a hazel to brown, which was an actual thing that happened in this movie and was part of the magic. And then it proved it was the 90s when Nancy asked for a smaller ass through the same spell. If this is 2020, she would have been asking for a much bigger ass.
Yes. That made no sense, even if we're 90s. So I was like, you're good.
I was really upset by that.
We need to Google when Sir Mix-a-Lot's anthem came out to find out just how behind the times this was.
When did white people start liking butts? Date, please.
That's got to be on Wikipedia, right?
I cannot really remember a time when I wasn't aware that men liked butts. Like, post-puberty. I don't know. I don't feel like that was a real thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Have you ever seen an 80s music video from a hair metal band? It's just like, all they were looking at was the front, and it's upsetting. The ass was not invented in white culture until like 1998.
Apparently.
Right, fair enough.
All right, so back to the plot, for lack of a better word. I
choked on my beer.
There's a random party that all of our social outcast girls get invited to for some reason. And Nancy uses the glamour to make herself look like Robin Tunney to seduce Skeet Ulrich. And then she kills him.
That was a strange scene because she takes him up to a room. He's still under the love spell. She tries to make a move on him and talking about how they hooked up before. He turns her down and she gets really upset about this and gets really jealous, but she knows witchcraft works. She knows that Robin Tunney put this love spell on him, so she should have been expecting that her feminine wiles, as potent as they are, would probably not stand up to this. It does illustrate our arc of this was a good female friendship, and then it was ruined by fighting over a stupid boy who was an asshole anyway.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's kind of weird, especially because her reason for killing him is so spirited. She's like, I can't believe that you're still into Robin Tunney. Ah! But you know that he was. That's how your magic works.
And they did not set up Nancy being like in love with Chris. Like she mentioned, they had maybe slept together. That's not they didn't do that setup.
It's very weird. Their reactions to magic throughout this movie are very confusing. Really early on, they play light as a feather, stiff as a board, and actually manage to levitate Rochelle. And then they're all surprised by it, even though by that point, they've all been practicing witchcraft, actual witchcraft, for a week.
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked the vertigo shot that in POV they did when Skeet Ulrich fell out of this third-story window and they had him falling towards this paved pathway. I thought that was a really cool shot. It felt like it was different and better than what I would see nowadays. That's one thing I have to say about this movie. When it comes to cinematography, there was a bunch of shit that I liked and didn't feel like stock horror movie shots.
That's a good point.
One in particular was, and I know this is skipping ahead, at the end of the movie, there's a big confrontation in this house that Robin Tunney's family has moved into. And they have Nancy being evil and walking up the stairs. And in any movie that's been made since 2005, the shot would be low camera angle behind Nancy. She's carrying a knife and she would be like dragging it along the wall. We can all picture that shot in our heads because we've seen it in every trailer for the past 15 years. But in this movie, they shot it from an upstairs hallway area and have Nancy coming up and around a pillar and into view. It just felt different and fresh and creative instead of everyone's done this shot before.
That's fair. So yeah, going back a little bit, this is now that Chris has died because of Nancy's power. That's the scene Sarah was talking about where Robin Tunney's like, I thought he was probably a good guy.
Okay, so I have like a lot of mixed feelings about this because I get that like when someone that you like had a somewhat positive relationship with, someone that you know sexually assaults you, it's very confusing and it feels like you have to like reconcile the two people that you know now.
Please, let's stop talking about Joe Biden.
Yeah. But I also am like, you barely knew this guy, and what he showed you was that he's charming on the surface, and underneath that is a complete douchebag. And she's like, I thought he was really a good guy underneath it all. And it feels like it should be so obvious that it was the opposite.
They could have pretty easily fixed it too. Like, he may have been an asshole, but didn't deserve to die. Could have been a much more effective way to react to that.
Right.
Yes, that would have been better, and it would have shown Robin Tunney being compassionate, but also recognizing that this guy was a piece of shit, which he clearly is in this movie.
Yeah, when she cries and says, I still really liked him, I was just like, oh my god, like, no.
One of the things I actually liked is they do actually have a good scene of Robin Tunney being believably compassionate right after this, where she tries to use her power to bind Nancy from doing harm. And I really liked that her first impulse was, okay, I can use my power, but I don't have to go straight to, like, harming her. I can just hopefully prevent her from doing harm. And I felt like that was a good move. I feel like in most other movies, it would either be, like, one of the two extremes where it would be like, I can just talk to her and she'll see reason, which we're obviously way past by this point, or else, well, gotta go straight to murder.
Yes. Her chant is, I bind Nancy from doing harm to others and herself. So it's clear that Robin Tunney still cares about this person, even though Nancy is off her fucking rocker.
Yeah, like I said, it felt like such a believable thing for her to do, and a really compassionate and considerate approach to a real problem.
That doesn't work. And we have, I think, my favorite scene in the movie, because we've had bathroom confrontation scenes before on the podcast. We had one back on Riverdale where it was the flashback episode, and young Alice and young Penelope were bitch slapping each other and then began like a WWE match. But this scene where Robin Tunney comes to school the day after Skeet Ulrich has died and is avoiding the rest of the witches is awesome because they corner her in the bathroom and magic the stall door open and are menacing. And when they say, oh, back in the old days, if a witch betrayed her coven, they'd fucking kill her. It was way better done than having an actual confrontation, and it felt like there was some suspense.
Disagree.
I liked this scene. I thought it was dope.
Kevin and I were barely paying attention by this point in the movie. We just kept like pausing it and checking how much longer we had left.
See, and I was super invested at that point. So by the time Robin Tunney gets freaked out and runs to the witch lady, who reveals that Robin Tunney's mom, who died in childbirth, was a witch, which... Oh God, I can't use that word.
Witch.
Witch.
Our favorite Subway sponsor. No.
But I wanted her to turn to Robin Tunney and say, you know what this means. Your dad's a witch fucker.
Witch fucker general. That's the joke that's going to work for all our podcast listeners who know the hit song Witchfinder General.
I don't know that song, and I'm part
That's
of the
because
podcast.
it was not a hit song.
I don't even think that's a song. I think you just sang a little melody right there.
I think you should Google the song Witchfinder General and discover that not only did I sing it correctly, it is a real song.
I'm struggling with spelling right now. This is a 1968 film.
With a theme song.
Why do you know about this?
Look, I have a lot of free time during work days.
It's a band. There's an entire band called Witchfinder General. Did they do the song Witchfinder General, or did someone else?
I don't believe they did the song.
Holy shit. Witchfinder General is apparently a huge deal.
Witchfinder General, now the official band of this podcast.
Starring Vincent Price. This is the next movie we're watching. So while you guys were being super fucking bored, Robin Tunney runs to the witch lady, who's like, come into my back room. It's a sick black light setup. There's a bunch of felt posters of like Cheech and Chong and shit. We'll get this sorted out. And Robin Tunney gets freaked out and runs away back home.
And then there's a climactic scene.
I don't know if it's earned the right to be described as climactic.
Yeah.
There's a scene. It happens roughly where a climax should.
The mirror thing was cool, where she makes Bonnie and Rochelle see their worst nightmares in the mirror. Bonnie has scars all over herself. Rochelle's hair is the one that's missing, which I'm like, that... I feel like they really missed the point of the racism by focusing on the hair thing.
Yeah.
That was not the problem ever. And
I was loving this scene because I loved all the effects where they have a shitload of snakes in the house and bugs crawling through the air vents and all these things. And
I did like the bugs. It reminded me of a pretty fun episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I immediately was like, the bug man. Hide in the basement, put super glue under the crack of the door. I've got this down.
It turns out Nancy is kind of an evil, crazy ass bitch. And
Whoa, spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, killing Skeet Ulrich really hinted at that. But her plan is, let's push Robin Tunney to suicide because she attempted it before and does a spell that makes her think that her parents are dead, all these other things, and is pressuring her to kill herself. Robin Tunney doesn't do that, but there's tons of cool practical effects. And I just geeked out on this scene because I liked all the effects in it. But I'm also a person who has seen a shitload of terrible movies with really bad practical effects.
There was a scene I really liked in this confrontation where Robin Tunney is hiding in a mirror and then steps out to surprise Nancy. But her version of a surprise is just like basically the tapping her on a shoulder
Yeah.
and then being on the other side.
I liked the snake fingers, where she does some spell, and when Nancy looks at her hands, all her fingers turn into snakes.
I also enjoyed the snake fingers. That was good.
That was my favorite effect
And
in
then
the movie.
there was a Medusa snake hair too at the end. It was good.
It was super cool. The funniest one and most laughable in B-movie was when, I guess, Robin Tunney goes sort of invisible, and when Nancy's looking for her, she uncovers Robin Tunney's clothes, like her shirt and skirt laid out and perfectly pressed. And when Robin Tunney just appears fully dressed from that, it was fucking hilarious. But in that way of, this is campy and I love it.
I don't know. It's not quite enough for me to think of it as campy.
No.
I was super into it because this is a big step up from Critters 3, which is another movie I've seen.
But yeah, so Robin Tunney finally succeeds in getting the upper hand, and she binds Nancy successfully, preventing her from causing harm ever again. And then the next day, Bonnie and Rochelle just kind of stop by the house and go, "Hey, Sarah, we kind of lost our powers. Do you still have your powers?"
And she says, "Of fucking course I do." And
Strikes a tree with lightning.
her power is to summon storms and ruin the credibility of local meteorologists.
And then we cut to Nancy, who has been committed to a psychiatric institution and is straitjacketed and strapped to the bed. And for some reason, they think that's not enough and also drug her. And then...
Well, she insists, "I can fly!"
Yes.
I wanted a different ending. I wanted it to be the binding works and Nancy is apologetic, and then it cuts to Nancy and Robin Tunney bright and cheerful together as a happy couple. That was my ideal ending.
That would have been a lot better, because as it stands right now, Robin Tunney is still an outcast and she has fewer friends than when she started.
And she just still has tons of power on her own, like she always did. And literally nothing in the movie ever mattered.
I'm so confused too, because like this, everything you did will come back times 3 doesn't seem to actually play into anything, because at the end of the movie, Bonnie still has
Smoking hot bod.
Yeah, she no longer has her burns. Rochelle still has her hair, and Robin Tunney, who did that love spell, like nothing times 3 came back.
No, like I
to
just
her.
said, like literally, she is still super powerful. It is like the whole movie never happened for her.
And I also don't get, like, how is, like, just flexing your powers to intimidate your former friends, how is that not selfish use of your powers?
It definitely is. It did not make any sense.
Sometimes you gotta flex on the haters, though.
I kept thinking about...
She's a schoolgirl, not a rapper.
I kept thinking about other witch 90s movies. Like, basically, I just, towards the end of this movie, just kept turning to Kevin and being like, okay, could just be my memory, but Practical Magic is so much better than this movie.
I haven't seen Practical Magic. I was comparing it to, it might have been 2006. I'm gonna look this film. Have you seen The Covenant?
No.
Which
I've
is
heard of it.
Basically, 2006, The Covenant. It's basically, imagine if The Craft was with all dudes instead, and there was also anime fight elements. It's pretty fucking terrible.
That sounds really bad, yeah.
It's bad. So my thing was, oh, this is a way better version of this, and I had so much fun watching it. And maybe it's this thing of, it has the same stakes of a Goosebumps book, where at the end of it, everything's kind of back to the way it was, and
Yes.
there's this last twist where R.L. Stine wrote the last sentence of like, and then there's still supernatural stuff happening.
Right. Yeah.
And no one has to learn a lesson. Few people really grow. But this is a movie that, to me, you can throw on with a group of friends and just like riff on and make jokes throughout the time as you watch it, but also enjoy it because it's got some good acting, cool actors. interesting shots and fun practical effects. So I personally would watch this movie multiple more times.
Interesting.
I think I'm going to look up more about practical magic. I think we should watch it for next time.
All right.
Well, we can definitely do that before we pick our next TV show. But in my opinion, the movie, like, it had some good elements, but I think it was too subdued to ultimately be like a good, bad film to watch. It wasn't at the level of campy that would have made it truly fun and enjoyable.
Ooh, okay. This is really good. Okay, so it's a 1998 film.
Ooh, we're jumping forward 2 years, 2 whole years.
2 whole years.
Oh my god!
So you know a lot about it. It stars Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock, and this is intriguing. It has a 21% on Rotten Tomatoes,
Oh yes.
but a 91% Google users like this movie.
Oh dang. Okay, now I'm
Fascinating.
interested.
Right? My memory of this is like I think I've seen it like twice. Once like when it came out, and then once probably in the mid 2000s, sometime 2005 or something.
It says it's a romantic comedy. Is it like Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman are
This
dating?
is a romantic comedy.
This is Wikipedia, the premier source for information. Practical Magic is a 1998 American romantic comedy fantasy.
Yeah, the genres it has listed under on my thing are fantasy, romance, comedy, and drama. So
Just checking all the boxes.
It's exactly the
everything.
mission statement for us.
yeah, why don't we come back next week and discuss Practical Magic, and then at the end of that episode, we will finally pick a new TV series to get into.
Yes. Final scores for The Craft. What would you give this?
I guess 2 out of 5 betrayed best friends. It wasn't bad enough to be like, wow, I hated that. It was just like kind of a tepid, it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna say like 2.5 beached sharks.
I'm going to give some context for the fact that I'm giving this 4 out of 4 members of the Coven because I
You
instantly...
don't have to keep podcasting with him, you know.
Wow.
This is America. If you don't agree with someone, you never talk to them again. Shades of meaning here. This is the kind of movie that I would watch when hanging out with someone and then step back. I watched Critters 1, 2, and 3 on 3 consecutive dates with a girl I was seeing. So this movie blows all of those out of the water, and I have an extremely low benchmark for movies that I will watch with other people.
Maybe we need to watch Critters 1, 2, and 3 so that we can have low standards too.
Maybe that will solve it. Yeah.
All right, hey, Critters 3 is the first feature-length film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. It's his feature-length debut, so he's an Academy Award-winning actor.
It's actually a paired movie with his other starting role, What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Critters 3.
I've never seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
Don't.
but the Basketball Diaries holds up. I'm gonna say that.
I haven't seen it in a long time.
All right, well,
But
been 10 years.
I remember thinking somewhat positively about Leonardo DiCaprio after seeing it, which is the only time that's happened when I've seen a film with him in it.
wow, harsh words for Titanic.
Sorry. I mean, about him specifically, not the movie as a whole.
Titanic,
All right.
more like Titanic piece of shit.
I don't hate it. I mean, for a James Cameron film, I think it's good.
Also, for context, that's a running joke for the past 15 years with one of my friends, where anytime someone says Titanic, I say more like Titanic piece of shit. It gets funny when you hear it like 600 times.
Oh, man. Well, look forward to our next 600 episodes. Until next time, thank you for listening to Gritty Reboot. Please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts because it really helps us grow. Next time, we will be discussing Practical Magic.
I don't know if it's streaming anywhere, but fucking pirate it. It's the internet. You've all got computers. If you guys can't figure out how to get movies for free, listeners, then let me know on Twitter at Gritty Reboot Podcast or hit us up by email at grittyrebootpodcast@gmail.com and I will send you a link. That's the best fucking transition I've ever done.
That was really well done. All right, let us end this now.